Welcome to a very special episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know. This is Spider-Ben, and with me, as usual, is...
It's just Andrew this time. No special funny name.
Oh, boo!
We have a returning guest. He's been with us to talk about Batman Returns and Batman Forever and Jingle All the Way, and now we're going to talk about Spider-Man 2. It is Tim Flattery.
I'm a regular now. I think I'm officially a regular.
I think so.
I think
it's
so,
been
yeah.
too long, Tim.
Right.
I missed you.
Likewise, Ben.
So we've already done an episode covering different concept art, but we don't necessarily know all the stuff that went on behind the scenes outside of, what's been published in like the Mark Hottavass book on Caught in the Web, the Dreaming Up the World of Spider-Man 2. So Tim's going to enlighten us, and we're going to go through a bunch of images that we either have gone over before or ones that he sent to us and all the different stories involved. But I guess the first question then, Tim, is how you got to be involved with Spider-Man 2.
So I was called by the producing team and the production designer, Neil Spizak, to come on and specifically for development of Doc Ock. And again, more so just in regards to his tentacles and just being the guy that gaffs between the concept art and seeing things through to the reality, getting them built and taken to set. But at that time I was just hired on for the conceptual side of it, for Doc Ock, not
Gotcha.
for the art department side that Neil was doing.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
There is an image that we went over that was Photoshop art from Jamie Rama that is said to have had the art department artists in it, but we weren't sure whether or not you were in it. But I don't know if you've seen this image. But
Yeah, I have. I think Jamie did that because I had left the film early, and that's a story that we can talk about as we get going.
Sure.
I am not in there, I don't believe. I think he did this after I left the film.
Gotcha. Okay. We were just curious. We were just like,
say.
hey, we know somebody who was in there. Maybe he's in here. Just hidden away. It's just kind of hard to tell because you can't really see the faces.
No, you can't. They're all blurred. Some of the guys I know who they are. I see Jim Carson in there. I see one of the art directors. And,
Gotcha. Okay.
That's funny.
So let's go into some of the photos that you sent me that I've never seen before because they're part of your own personal collection. But we have a prototype Doc Ock here.
Nice.
Yeah. So these are fun because this was during the development phase of the film, and at this time, it was just me and a few other people on, and they were still finishing up the script. We hadn't designed Doc Ock yet. We're just in the process of starting concept art for Doc Ock. But one of the big concerns was not only how are we going to make the tentacles work practically and even within CG, but what do you do with these things? They're just kind of, when he's standing there, it's just, they're sort of gangly. And Sam was not concerned, but just sort of focused at this point about how do you shoot this? If these are 20-foot long tentacles, let's say, what are they doing when he stands out? What do they look like? How do you get around them? And so, the high-tech Hollywood genius, what do? You buy a bunch of dryer hose, and if you got a production assistant, you tell him to take his shirt off. That's Aaron back there. You tell him to take his shirt off and put a coat on him and duct tape dryer hose to him. And then we crumpled up tin foil, painted it black, cut up some plastic with it, and formed some claws. And, suspended it this was inside the art department, suspended them with some fishing line, and got them in there to hold, and then just kind of posed the arms. And this was just rudimentary for like, getting a camera on him and looking at how the tentacles might add to the frame or what the problems are going to be that they would cause you in shooting Doc Ock. And so I think in one of these photos, like the next one, there's that's poor guy was tortured. But this is kind of an example of like how foreground, the tentacles could be a foreground element and lead you into the frame, right? Mm-hmm. And then keep going. So that's actually John Dykstra in the red shirt right there. Mm-hmm. And he was he was the visual effects supervisor on the film. And so he and I, as I told you in some of our last episodes, Dykstra is the guy that gave me my break in Hollywood when he was running Apogee. And so he and I knew each other pretty well. And we were tag teaming this thing where he was taking care of the synthetic end and I was taking care of the practical end. And I just sent these photos to you because it cracks me up. I mean, like early on in these days, I mean, this is as down and dirty and gritty and simple as filmmaking can be, solving problems. It's like, let's get some dryer hose and, create a Doc Ock. So we called Sam over for him to look at it and bring a lens and put a lens on it. And he said, yeah, that's great, guys. But I don't know. I mean, we're going to be seeing them from, on top of buildings. What does that look like? So I said, I don't know. So we took him. The art department's right behind us. We said, well, let's go outside and find out, So the guy on the right's Tom. He's one of the art directors. He was one of the guys in Jamie's rendering.
Gotcha.
He always wore that white button-down shirt. That's how I recognize him. But anyway, on each side of that little electrical house that Aaron's standing on are bathrooms. We literally put him on the roof of a bathroom, put him on a ladder, reduct tape the tentacles to him, and then Sam got underneath and looked at shots that way. And it was actually really helpful to look at it from an angle that you're going to see in the film. So that's why I sent you these, because that's Sam right there. So on the ground is Sam Raimi holding one of the tentacles. John Dykstra in the red shirt. That's Jim Atchison, the costume designer. And up on the roof is Neil Spizak, the production designer, on his knees there. Aaron, and then Tom Wilkinson is the art director, and I'm the one taking the pictures here. So you can see. You can see that's the women's bathroom right there. There's a sign right there, and it's like the glamour of Hollywood on the back lots. Like, throw them on top of a bathroom. Let's put a lens on it.
This is what we got.
Yeah, nice lens flare coming off the Sony tower. So these are all angles of kind of like, let's see what he looks like in an extreme low, buddy. So that's how Sam talks. I got a funny story about Sam too, because I knew Sam before, back in the day, from back here in Michigan, actually.
Okay.
From the very late 70s, like 1979. We were camp counselors together at Camp Tamaqua, which Mike Binder ended up making a movie about Camp Tamaqua. It's called Indian Summer, and Sam Raimi was in the movie. But anyway, and he came to camp as he and I had we shared a cabin together, and he was, I don't know, Sam's whatever he is, 5-6 years older than I am, and I was in high school and he was in college, but he brought this 8mm film to share with all the campers, which was the beginning stages of Evil Dead. And
oh wow!
And he screened it for all the campers and us, and Bruce Campbell puking up blueberry pie filling, and all that stuff. It was amazing, and it was total Sam Raimi even back then. And and it was like, wow, that's really cool. And, didn't think much of it past that. And then later on down the road, here goes Sam. He makes Evil Dead. And then we ended up meeting on Evil Dead 3, and he still had our Tamaqua camp counselor picture with our campers in his office. And I said, I can't believe you remember me. He goes, oh, you kidding? How can I forget? He goes, maybe we'll get to work together someday. So anyway, fast forward to Spider-Man 2, and here we were working together. I'm doing Doc Ock, and like it was a dream to work for him as a director. So Sam's like, what you see is what you get. The guy's just like super chill and really cool and creative.
It's awesome.
Yeah. There's Aaron. Not happy because this was, after he'd been standing there for whatever, an hour and a half, stuck to this thing, waiting for Sam to show up.
So how long was he in this?
We spent half a day between inside here and outside, fooling around with the dryer hose.
Gotcha.
So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, high-tech Hollywood.
So now we're getting to some of the tentacle stuff that I think.
Yeah, so once there were a couple of us working on Doc Ock himself and the Tentacles, and I think we're going to get to some of that artwork in a little bit. But once there was a direction, like if you go back one, we ended up doing a couple of versions of the Tentacles, and so that's one of my sketches. Like one was kind of this more industrial design, smooth kind of feel to it. That's my sketch below, just a rough sketch. And then I did a, Chavant clay sculpture of it. And another one was like kind of by Jose Fernandez. It's more, I'm going to say clunkier design, but something that was more industrial in regards to its like functionality. And then another one that Paul Cantling had done. So anyway, so we were kind of vetting out different directions for the Tentacles, and this is the process we used.
Gotcha.
Once we, even before we decided on a direction, like if you go to the next slide, we began R&D. And then this is where it got into where it transitioned from me being a concept designer on the film to me being the concept designer / art director that's going to supervise and oversee the construction of the Tentacles. And so this gets into the story of why I ended up leaving the film a little early, because when I made my deal with the producers, it was to come on as a concept designer. And then when they asked me to supervise, I said, okay, well, as you know, to supervise, that's a whole nother deal. And I have to redo my deal, and it's this much more money. And this is a discussion with Laura Ziskin, who was the producer on there at the time. And she said, yeah, of course. We got that. Don't worry about it. We'll take care of that. And when that kicks in, we'll adjust your deal. I said, okay, good to go. So in good faith, I kept going and went through the process of interviewing all the different effect shops. Steve Johnson was one of them. Canham's, Canby, all the different shops that were in it. So this was like, by this point in my career, I've been around the block a lot. It wasn't like early in my career with the Batmobile where it was just throw caution to the wind and go for it and kind of pull off the impossible. This one I knew it was like, this is going to be a shit show. This is going to be tough because one, Sam was adamant that the Tentacles be practical and work practical. And he kept describing like, I want him to be really dexterous, but also very powerful, so that when Doc Ock's smoking a cigar, they light his cigar for him, and each tentacle has its own personality. And, he's talking to him, and I want him to be able to do finite things, because he's a scientist and making shit, and they're his arms. So they have to speak as quick as he can think. They have to act as quick as they have to act his thoughts. And I'm thinking to myself, like I know what I'm in for here. This is going to be a tough one. One, it's going to be really tough to build and pull off. Two, I'm going to have some of the best puppeteers in the business that are great performers, but also are good mechanical designers. And three, God help us on whatever actor this is going to be. That can make or break you. I've had experiences on set with actors that have gone poorly and, made things difficult. And I've had experiences with actors that went well because of their professionalism. And, you don't know what you're going to get, because anytime you strap an apparatus like this or a big suit on an actor, it's pretty miserable for them. Right. So I had my eyes wide open going into this. And so I was very particular about this R&D process and who I was going to award the job to. So if you go forward in some of these photos, this is just some of the mechanical R&D that was happening in Steve Johnson's shop about, we had done some renderings previous to that, like the claws of the tentacles become these shells that open up and expose finer detailed fingers like you see here, the white silicone. And those fingers get puppeteered too, and those are the things that do the finite detail. Take off his glasses, light a cigar, like all that stuff. So there's a combination of puppeteering between the mechanics of the arms and the fingers, and then puppeteering the whole tentacle itself as well. So between that and marrying the action with how an actor blends with it, along with having 6 puppeteers behind him, that's really complicated shit. So in the movie, anytime you saw Doc Ock from the waist up, it's all practical. Puppeteers and Alfred Molina in sync together. Anytime you see him full head to toe, generally that's a John Dykstra synthetic Doc Ock CG.
Gotcha.
So this turned out to be a pretty complicated piece of engineering that these pictures will show you. There's some detailed little drawings from the engineers and the shops. There were some of the best engineers. This is in Steve Johnson's shop, and I ultimately awarded it to Steve Johnson just because, one, the guy's just sort of a crazy genius, and two, he had the right puppeteers and the right engineers at his disposal immediately, right then and there. And that's kind of what happened. These guys kind of bounce from shop to shop, but they, at this time, during this time, he already had them there from a previous job, and he attracts the top talent. So this was the sections throughout the tentacle, the mechanical sections that were being R&D during this time, so that they have full movement and show the mechanics behind it. So this is a combination between some of the renderings that I was doing and some of the renderings that Paul Catling was doing in regards to what the apparatus and the hardware of the tentacle actually looked like. And so this was their answer to the concept drawings and making it practical and working. So these were ultimately what the head of the tentacles, the claws of the tentacles, ended up being, designed and sculpted by Jose Fernandez, who runs Ironhead Studios now. The guy's amazing. He sculpted pretty much almost all the bat suits, and I don't know if you know his credits or not, but
oh yeah, we've mentioned him before when talking about the bat suits.
I met him once when I worked on Aquaman 1. I had to go over to his place for something he was doing.
Oh, okay. He's incredible. I mean, just
Yeah.
and we we all kind of basically started out around the same time. And it's funny because you can see Paul Catling's drawing just in the background there, and I know we'll get to that in a minute, and we'll talk about that in detail because that's the drawing that really captured Doc Ock. So anyway, so these are the final claws and how they hinged, all opened up and all that stuff worked perfectly. And the design that I had done that we saw previously, Sam liked, but he gravitated towards this because he said these feel like they could pierce a concrete wall and be tough enough and not fragile enough to like break. And that ultimately was what won his his attention. So this is the escutcheon mount to the claw part of it, and then you can see all the hinge points there.
That's cool.
Super cool. And then the sections based on Paul's and my concept art. And this is what made up the body of the tentacles.
These are not 3D printed, right? This is before 3D
Oh
printing.
no, this is all molded. Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
There's no 3D printing back then at this time. There's the full. I have a cast of this in my office, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's just like you look at that silhouette of that, and it's just like it's fucking balls on. Like it's so right. Like if they would have went with the one that I had sculpted and whatever, it was just too designerly, for Doc Ock, like what Jose did there. It's just like full on. So what you're looking at here. So this is really interesting because to get the fluidity of how the tentacles moved, because they want to move like a snake, right? Or an eel. Like they want to be very fluid and all that. They did them out of sectioned foam. So that, you can see the pole handles to the puppeteers. So this was a maquette just to get them to practice movement and performance of each tentacle. So you see the little handles that are laying on the wood platform there, and they're attached to the head of each tentacle. So the puppeteers would, each puppeteer would arm a midsection and the head of the tentacle, and they would just perform ballet and the foam would just move just like a snake. And so that's what you're seeing here. It was actually really beautiful to watch. It was like watching a dance. And it's funny when you have a good puppeteer, whether it's on an RC radio or just with a hard apparatus like this, they're actors. That's why they're in SAG, and that's why they get residuals. I mean, their performance is equally as important as any actor on set. So to have a talented puppeteer is everything.
This is the top of it too.
Yeah, this was prototype, so you can see it's kind of rough, but
Gotcha.
not the finished one, but just kind of a working prototype that they bumper chromed to show to Sam.
Gotcha. Then another look. We can see some of that concept art too in the background.
Yeah, so there's Paul's stuff there. You see my rendering at the bottom. So it was like a combination between me and Paul. I worked out all the fingers that when the claw opened up, I worked out all the, just the linkage of the fingers and what they look like and all that stuff. And that's what that bottom rendering is. And then we, of course, you have to do maquettes just to get the overall look to Doc Ock, right?
Gotcha. Yeah. Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, super cool stuff. So again, there's Jose on the right. This was the lead puppeteer on the left. God, and I'm embarrassed because I can't remember his name, but he was like the god of effect shops and puppeteers. Like he was like the performance guru. Like when he walked in the room, everybody stopped, kind of thing. And I can't remember his name. And
We'll look it up in the break.
Yeah.
We'll answer
but
that later.
The dude commanded mad respect from like even the top effects guys in the industry. they were in awe of him. And he was the difference in the performance of the, of all the puppeteers together.
Gotcha.
He was the lead. So more of the foam. Yeah. So here's some of the just rough working drawings of, and so this was what you see in that milled finger is a direct replica of my final rendering of the phalanges inside the clamshell. And so I did the concept, and their engineer, Steve Johnson's engineer, worked out all the mechanics to get it to articulate and open up, and then cabled it so that it could hold things and grab things. Just remarkable talent, these fucking guys. Like, you know, just unbelievable.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see all the cabling that leads to it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Super cool.
Oh, wow.
I know.
The fingers.
I know. It's like, it's not like all the work that goes into, you know, this is still in the R&D phase. You know, we had a direction now at this point in the R&D, but we're still researching and developing, getting all this to work and getting it all to work in harmony with how these would get puppeteered. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty hardcore.
Amazing. So I think when you were talking about sort of the early stages and stuff, you also mentioned that, hey, like you left early, and that some of that was due to the fact that you had to kind of do some of this R&D stuff. Like, was there more to that you didn't get a chance to get into, or is there?
Yeah, I mean, I can get into the story now, if you want it right now. Okay, and then. I mean, it might be premature. It might be premature leading to like some of the other artwork, but we can circle back.
We can go back and forth. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Laura Ziskin and I had this conversation, and I went into R&D because she said, "Yeah, when we get there, we're good." And I went into R&D, just basically like on good faith, and we were good to go, and was really. The more R&D we were doing, just based on the pictures you just saw, the more confidence I had in us pulling this off. You know, because even like I remember John Dykstra and we had a couple of conversations before we started R&D, and he said to me, "Man, I got the easy part of this." Like he goes, and I'm nervous. He goes, "You're fucked." And I'm like, "I know." Like, he's like, "How the hell are you going to get this to work?" And I said, it's doable, but it's going to take a lot of coordination with Sam and balancing Sam's expectations and all that. Because, as we said before, one of our other things, like you don't tell a director no.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, I knew what I was in for, and so as we got into the R&D, I got excited and confident about the progress we were making. It was like, I think this is going to work, but it's still going to be, the hard work was ahead of us. We got to the point where it came down between Stan Winston and Steve Johnson, and the studio was favoring Stan Winston, but it wasn't like when I did the Batmobile where they like basically said, "If this doesn't work, that's the end of your career, kid." They supported it. I said that, because Steve had all the right people at that time in the shop and what they were seeing, what I was showing them out of R&D, it was like, yeah, I said, let's award it to Steve. The studio execs were in all these meetings. There's one, the VP of production was in all of them. I won't say his name because he comes up later in the story. And he supported it. He was like, yeah, you guys know what you're doing, it's your decision. So I awarded it to Steve Johnson. So now we're at the point where we're going into pre-production, and it's time for my deal to change because it's that time. We're transitioning from R&D into we're getting into pre-production. And so I reminded the producers, I said that, because nobody had approached me, and I said, "Hey, just as a reminder, we had an agreement. My rate goes from here to here." "Oh, yeah. And I said, "That should have kicked in a month ago." And they said, yeah, you're right. We're on it. And I don't know, like the next day or so, they sent the associate producer to my office, and they said, yeah, so here's the offer the studio is making you. And it was literally half of what Laura and I agreed to. And I said, this is not what I agreed to. And this guy, he was caught in the middle. He didn't have any idea. It would happen. I think it happened to be Sam's producer, actually, the associate producer on Sam's side. So he wasn't even, it wasn't even his responsibility.
Mm.
And they just sort of expect you to play ball kind of thing. And because, like I said, I had my eyes wide open, I had plenty of experience at this point. I was like, David, you've got to take this back. I'm not signing this. And he said, okay. I said, Laura and I had a deal. And so he leaves, and an hour later, my phone rings, and it's a line producer. And he's like, Tim, what's the problem? Blah blah blah. And I said the same thing. And I said, Laura and I had a deal. And he said, all right, let me work on it, and we'll get back to you. So, I kept working. I kept going. So a couple days later, I get a call from the VP of production, from his office. And, I'll try and make this as short as possible. Long story short, he calls me up and he says, can you come down here and let's talk about this? So I went down to his office, and he was like, well, so what's the problem? And I explained, and he would acknowledge that I had an agreement with with Laura Ziskin, the executive producer of the movie, right? This was her movie. Spider-Man 1 was her movie. And, a deal's a deal. And he was like, well, we're prepared. I've seen you in these meetings. He starts that shit. And then he started you got a really, we see what you do. You got a great future, with Sony. Like, we see you being this, and blah, blah, blah. And, you got to realize this is a big opportunity for you. And so I'd been around the block, and I appreciate him saying that, but I just said, listen, we'll call him Joe, whatever. I said, Joe, I just diffused that right away. I mean, I just wanted him to know, like, don't go down that road with me. So I just said, I've had all the opportunity that I'm passionate about in my career already. Like, this is a great project, and I want to see it through. But this isn't the opportunity for my career. I've had that. Like, I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. Like, I don't need to be a production designer, a director, or whatever. Like, I love doing what I do. So that was frustrating for him, because that was a clear message. Like, no, I'm here to make the deal I originally.
Right. You can't play that card.
You can't play that card. And so he said, well, what's it going to take? I mean, we can take the full amount. We can just write you a check right now.
Wow.
For the amount, and we'll just give it to you as the full amount in one lump sum. And I said, I don't really care how you do it. You let me know. And he said, okay, that sounds good. We'll get back to you. So back in the shops, a couple days later, I'm back at the studio. In comes David again with the new deal. And sure enough, it's a lump sum up front, and then my original deal behind it. So I did the math, and the lump sum added up to the same number.
What? What?
Yeah. So
They
the
do
lump
this.
sum,
They do
the lump
this.
sum added up to half of the amount that what we Laura and I had agreed to. So it was clear that it was the studio. It wasn't Laura Ziskin doing, she agreed. It was the studio playing hardball. Mm-hmm. Don't ask me why, because like this is, they're a day's catering budget for, fucking, you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
And this is the kind of stuff that will piss you off if you're below the line, because they'll spend $200,000 on flying somebody in for lunch, but they'll fight you tooth and nail over, yeah. And so it's just, it's just really frustrating.
Jeez.
So I said the same thing. I'm like, David, I can't sign this. This is the same deal that I wouldn't sign before. Poor guy. He's like, okay, I'll let him know. 20 minutes later, my phone rings, and it's Joe's office asking me to come down again. So I go in, and he plays this tactic like, Tim, we had a deal. What are you doing? They're telling me you're not signing it. And I was like, Joe, I thought we had a deal. You said lump sum, but he goes, yeah, I meant lump sum of the amount that, previously was agreed on. I'm like, I never agreed to that. Well, I thought we had a deal. And so like it went around in circles. And I just, I flat out just said, look, I don't know how else to explain this, but this is a huge project, a huge commitment on my part, too many variables that are unknown, like once we get on set, because when you build shit like this, shit's going to go wrong. I mean, it's just, there's just, you don't have a choice. Like it's complicated stuff, and being on set's going to be a nightmare with this stuff. And and I just said, I'm just telling you, I want to be clear. I'm not signing this deal other than anything that I've already agreed to with Laura Ziskin. Well, he wouldn't do it. So, so that afternoon, I called Sam, I called Neil Spizak, called John Dykstra, and I told them that I couldn't make a deal. They were all aware that my deal was supposed to transition and that I'd be leaving the film. And you never want to leave a film. Like, it's just bad form. It doesn't look good. It doesn't sit well in your reputation for whatever reason. In their minds, you're committed and you see it through. And so it was tough, but I wasn't going to bend over on this one. It was too big of a commitment. And so I left the film. So there's a epilogue to this story, which is really good. So I got this, basically when I walked out of Joe's office, he didn't do the thing that, like the message I got from Batman, but he made it clear to me that I burned a bridge there, like in so many words. And so a year and a half later, finishing up, I think it was Chronicles of Riddick or something, and I get a call from Ian Bryce. He's got he produced all the Transformers movies and whatever. And I've worked with him a few times, and he said, "Hey, we're doing this movie called Stealth. We want you to design the talents. Would you, are you available?" I said, "Yeah, I'm just finishing this thing up." And he's calling from Sony, and all the deals go through Joe.
Great.
And so I didn't say anything about it. I just said, I don't know if this is getting too long for you guys, but this is funny.
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
This is stuff we did not know.
Yeah. So I didn't say anything about it purposely because I wanted to see how this was going to go. And so Ian says, yeah, okay, great. When can you start? And I said, I can start next week. I'm finishing this up. And okay, what's your rate? And I told him my rate. And he said, okay, let me run up by the studio and I'll get back to you. And I said, okay.
See where this is going.
Yeah. So I get this call literally an hour later from Ian. Hello, this is Tim. Tim, yeah. What the fuck did you do over here? Quote unquote. and I said, I don't. Let me guess. You're talking to Joe. And he said, yeah, I'm talking to Joe. And he said, you did A, B, C, D, E, and over his dead body, and you can fuck off. And he said, I'm calling to find out like what happened. And I asked him, well, what did he tell you? And he said, you walked out on them, like in the worst time you walked out. And I said, well, let me tell you what happened. And then I explained the story. And he said, I figured, because he and I knew each other enough to where I knew he would have open ears to my side. Mm-hmm. And he said, oh, I see. Okay. He said, well, let me make another phone call and, well, let me just call you back. And I said, okay. So he called back the next day and he said, so listen, this is what's happening here. He said, we want you to do the movie, but Joe isn't willing to pay you your rate. He wants to pay you your rate from Spider-Man because that's the last movie you did with Sony. And I said, oh, really? And I had been getting this rate for 2 movies since then, this new rate. Mm-hmm. And so I use this story with my students all the time because, like the art of deal making and all the nuance that goes to that. So after all that, like, him not making my deal on Spider-Man and all the fucking runaround that I was getting and all this shit. And then he's wanting to stick it to me. Like, I'm not going to pay you what you're getting now. I'm going to fucking pay you what you're getting 2 years ago, kind of thing. Right. Like, just felt like he was just still sticking it to me. And I said that to Ian. I said, boy, that feels like a stick it. And he said, well, I take it as it's an olive branch because there was no way Sony was ever going to hire you again. And now, after my conversation with them, they're willing. So I'll ask you guys, what would you do in this situation?
Ooh.
It's a tough one.
That's a tough
with
one.
all that history.
Yeah, that's tough, man. I feel like I need a lot of time to think about that.
Yeah. So, and I had to make the decision right there on the phone.
Right.
So the fact that Ian, so whenever I tell the story to my students, they're like, yeah, fuck him. Fuck that guy. You turn it down. I'd turn it down. And I'm like, would you? Because
it's not that easy though, is it?
It's not that easy. And there's politics involved. And the executive producer just said to you that the studio is handing you an olive branch.
Yeah.
So if I would have turned that deal down, where I burned a bridge 2 years ago, I would have nuked half of Hollywood in my reputation. So right. I took the deal because it was the right thing to do, and amends were made, and I did stealth, and it was like Spider-Man never happened, and it was cool, wow. And we moved on from there. So anyway, there's a long-winded story of why I ended up leaving Spider-Man early.
I'm glad I asked.
No, yeah,
I'm glad we went into it because you never hear. I mean, you do hear this type of stuff, but it's not stuff that is like stuff I'm going to find in the Caught in the Web Spider-Man 2 book.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, and it didn't sit well with me either because there were people depending on me on that movie, and walking away from it was really hard. Like Neil Spizak was pissed off. He's like, who is going to see this thing through now? And they got a guy. I mean, he did a great job. But, there's always somebody. But to put those people and put Sam in that position, which is like, yeah, sorry, I'm not doing the movie anymore, I'm leaving, is just really shitty. You just don't do that. But this was big, man. Like, it wasn't even about what I knew I was going to be in for the next 9 months. It was about the principle of it that we had an agreement and you stick to that agreement. And like, there is no backtracking. I don't care if it's the studio executive blocking it or not. The studio executive has to recognize the agreement that the executive producer made. And he wouldn't do it. And so I stuck to my guns. It wasn't easy. And, it's history now.
Was that something you learned over time being in Hollywood, like how to stick to your guns? Like, were you kind of a pushover at first, or were you always kind of good at that kind of thing?
Well, I would like to say I always stuck up for myself, which I did. I mean, that's why, like, I really would push buttons and increasing my rate every show. I would, and I was willing to say no, which aren't. But anybody starting off and trying to trying to get their career launched and get their reputation established, yeah, you got to eat shit
Yeah.
through a lot of that. Where they're like, we're only willing to pay you this, and you got to eat that sandwich until you have enough cachet under your belt and enough confidence to know that there'll be the next show immediately after if you say no. And that's the only way you can increase your rate. The only bargaining power we have below the line is to say no. There is no other bargaining power. We don't have, above the line clout, right? So you have to weigh it between yourself. And it took time to learn that. I mean, there wasn't anybody to teach me this shit. This was back in the 80s. And then, learning it and applying it, in the late 90s and, throughout the 2000s, I always push. I push Marvel every show, even today, where I can.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Andrew, it was a process. But I was always willing to take risks.
Okay. It just seems like there's always there's a lot of great artists out there, but the ones that actually succeed are the ones that also have that kind of business mindset.
For sure.
Like so many artists just don't have, and they can develop it. They could, but a lot don't develop the business mindset and kind of stay there. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. You look at Todd McFarlane or whoever. It's like this guy's like artist plus businessman, and look where he is. Like he's like the top of both in a certain way. Yeah,
I think the guys and the men and women who truly understand what it is that their talent brings a project,
right?
Understand its value, not over gauge it, right? But just have a balanced understanding of like what they're bringing.
Right.
Are the people that do excel up, and whether we call it a business sense or just a self-awareness, I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have it.
Yeah. I mean, there were a few of us. A guy named Matt Codd is another guy. He pushed boundaries like nobody's business. And whenever he and I would get hired together on a team, we would make our deals together. And we'd have screaming matches on the phone, like with producers. Like I remember he and I were in a car one time, and we had this guy on speaker, and I forget what film it was. We were trying to, and this producer was like, "The two of you are fucking crazy. The money you're asking, like nobody gets that money. I don't know who you guys think you are." Like he was like being offensive, and Matt Codd said to this guy, he goes, "I'm speaking for both of us now, Timmy and me. I'm telling you, you dumb fuck. Don't do that. Don't do that." But he said, "We hear this kind of shit from dumb fucks like you all the time, and we win every time." And he hung up.
Wow.
Definitely getting that job.
We didn't get the film. No.
Yeah.
We did get that same rate on the next film.
Nice.
I'm not advising that. Like that was Matt being heated up over. This was like probably the third conversation we had with this guy, and like he was the one that elevated it. And so if you're going to elevate it with Matt, he's going to elevate it right back at you.
I've heard screaming in general's gone. The amount of it's gone down over the years. Because I haven't seen a whole lot of it yet, and I've been at an effects shop for 6 years, 7 years. I mean, but I guess I'm not in the room with producers and shit all the time, so I don't know.
Well, I think that the deal making process is different now.
Yeah.
And I know that there's plenty of screaming going on behind the scenes, not in making deals, but just in um, keeping the budget within reign
Mm-hmm.
itself. Because, as you know, Andrew, now the schedules are tighter, the budgets are tighter, but the
Yeah.
expectations are greater, and that
Yeah.
leads to plenty of blowups. You know,
Mm.
Couldn't the effects guys on set call cut back in the day? Like they had kind of a lot of power on set. I've
I
heard that.
never experienced that.
Okay.
Even with like I've been on set with the Ken Ralstons and the Eric Brevicks and the all of them,
Yeah.
and not once have I heard an effects guy call a cut.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Nice.
I've
That's
heard
my experience.
I've heard tales of this, but like that would never happen today. I know that.
Fuck no.
Who the
I
fuck
mean,
is this guy?
the director's God. I mean, I can't even imagine if someone's out there calling cut. Like, they would have you on a golf cart to the parking lot so fast it would that's just bad form, man. Like, oh my god.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
that got long winded. We should go back to
Yeah.
some of the. But,
All right.
and I hesitated to even tell you guys the story because, um, it's like sort of the negative side to the. But at the same time, I had to because I think I only ended up doing 3 months on this film. It
Okay.
was concept R&D, and then I was gone. So, but I did a lot in that 3 months. You can see
Yeah.
the body of work
Yeah.
we did.
So,
I like hearing
And
all manner of Hollywood stories. So
Mhm.
I do too, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the proof in the pudding is all this work that we're looking at right now
Mhm.
set the production up. Like they were set. Like we had worked out all the fucking hard shit that you see, right? All the mechanics, the engineering,
Yeah.
the contract was awarded to Steve Johnson. Puppeteers were in place and started their choreography. It was like I just handed it to the guy that took over in a wrapped up fucking beautiful package with a red bow on it. And so
Right.
the budget, I had the budget worked out.
Wow.
It was done. It was everything was done. All he had to do was just kind of show up and go, yeah, it's on schedule. So anyway.
Well, we have a whole bunch of concept art to do, but why don't we dive into that a little bit after the break? It's time for the September announcements, everyone. So, strap yourselves in. We have a few to let you guys know about. First one is similar to what we've said before. We are starting to get closer to our goal for $300 a month. Thank you to you guys who have recently signed up. But we're not quite there yet. So, once again, join the Patreon, help us out, help us reach that goal of $300 per month. Once we reach that goal, we will celebrate on the main show by covering Superman Lives. I don't know how many drafts, but we'll see. But I'll try to do my best on that one. But that is the main part for that.
Don't you want to see us cover Cage's red Speedos for 7 hours or more?
If we get to 400, maybe we try to get a replica suit and put Andrew in it. But we haven't really discussed that internally.
That would be like not with just the Speedos, but with the full suit. I've thought about doing that because I actually, you know what? Yeah,
You got the hair for it.
if we get up to 500 a month,
There we go.
I'll get the suit. And we'll do a photo shoot. How
Surely
about
there's
that?
somebody on Etsy. Yeah, somebody on Etsy who can recreate this one.
500 a month, that's the goal, but the first is the 300 a month to do the coverage of the unmade movies.
Yes, for sure. So moving on to Metal Force.
Okay, everybody, so the campaign is ongoing as of this recording, and we need your help. We have crossed our initial goal of $2,000, which is great, but actually our full goal is $100,000. So this is because it's a feature. It's a live action feature. Some people have been confused by the art. After I did it, they think it's animation. So let me make that clear. This is a live action feature that is to be funded via Kickstarter, and it's basically R-rated Power Rangers meets Stranger Things. The elements of those, basically. It's not a fan film in any sense, and it's not directly. It's got those influences of those elements from those shows in its DNA. Let's put it that way, okay? So let me just spell that out for everybody. But yeah, if you want to go to Kickstarter.com/projects/Metal Force, that's 2 Metal Forces, you'll get right to our page. The link is right there in the video. And just trying to campaign this month and bring it on up. So that would be great. Please help support indie filmmaking. Hollywood has fucked us. Indie horror, indie tokusatsu, indie sci-fi, and a little bit of indie comedy. Indie filmmaking, everybody. So if you could, that'd be great. We're coming after Bat in the Sun. So, and Machinima too. So, that's it. Yeah, and also MetalForce.Ninja. The Kickstarter link is on that page as well if you want, but the direct link to Kickstarter is right here. So yeah, let's bring it on up. And thanks to everybody. I've seen some of the people from the podcast have already donated. So that's awesome. And if we could just bring it up even more, that would be great. So that's it for Metal Force.
Sweet. All right. Other thing is, our friends at Neuverse Creative have released the audio drama version of the Batman '89 comic, adapted and narrated by yours truly. So this is a full cast audio dramatization of the Batman '89 comic, written by Sam Hamm and art by Joe Quinones, that I adapted and I narrated it myself. But keep in mind, because people have been wondering about this, it is not a direct transcript of the comic. It stays faithful to the core story. But I've added a few things, combined a few scenes, made a few changes to adapt it to the fact that this is a, fan-made audio drama setting. So there are some Easter eggs that are not in the comic, but I put in the audio narration because it was appropriate for audio and wouldn't have necessarily been as appropriate in a comic. So let me know if you catch them, either in the comment section here or in the comment section on YouTube. Part 1 has already been released, and as of this recording, Part 2 may be released by the time this gets out. I'll have to find out, but that's what's up when it comes to the audio drama stuff, and of course, there will be a couple more on the way that I adapt, maybe not necessarily narrate, but I adapted, and you'll just have to find out when we announce those.
Tell them how long it is, Ben.
Each one is about 20 minutes.
Okay, so you guys can do it on your commute very easily.
Yes.
So yeah, there you go.
Yep. So thank you for that, and thank you to anybody else who has already listened and left comments on that. Lastly, our charity for this month is a big one personally for me because September is Blood Cancer Awareness Month. For those who don't know, I'm a survivor of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so this is a cause obviously personal to me. If I did not survive the cancer, I would not be on this show. So you can donate anything that you can to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society at www.lls.org. That's to help, fund cancer research to help cure blood cancers like leukemia, like lymphoma, for those who, were not as fortunate as I was. So for those who are currently going through battles with cancer or similar chronic life-threatening illnesses, of course, we all wish you, the best in keeping, up the good fight. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Ben has his story, and he's covered it before on the podcast, and glad you beat it, Ben, and hopefully we can support other people going through this. And, just again, generally speaking, we can't just be loving hero shit all the time and not try to actually help people. We thought of this idea as a way to put our money where our mouth is, kind of thing. So yeah, please check out the link in the description and donate if you can. So that's awesome. And also, Ben, actually another question.
Sure.
Does donating blood help this at all, or is that?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think it's a case where people who may need blood transfusions could use it. I was not someone who needed it. So
okay.
I'm not aware of that, but that's because that was my specific case. Other people might have stuff that was more severe that require blood transfusions, in which case donating blood could help. But I personally don't know.
Okay. And last thing I'll say is my grandfather on my father's side did die of Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was 34. So, yeah, I never got to meet him. I'm older than he ever got to be. He did not ever get a cough checked out for 2 years, apparently. And because he was too poor, didn't have any health insurance. And died very early on. And I grew up with my dad. Of course, as it's one of those things you shouldn't get over. But, my dad was never over that. Sure. And used to hear about that kind of stuff all the time. So, yeah, cancer fucking sucks, dude. As you know more than me, Ben. Anyway, so yeah, please support. Look at the link and lls.org. Just wanted to announce that I have a new podcast called Gaming Gaiden. It's about Japanese to English translation. In this first season, it will be 10 episodes each season. If you saw the ranking, every Superman video game two-parter we did here on Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you have seen Mike before. So yes, if you like video games, if you've been interested in Japanese ever, we're going to be talking a lot about just Japan in general, Japanese cultural differences as well. And we also are going to have a lot of talk about 90s video game magazines such as Electronic Gaming Monthly, aka EGM. So stay tuned for Gaming Gaiden podcast. It's already out now, y'all. I wanted to tell you about the patreon.com. Patreon.com/superherostuffpod. And on that, you get the $1 tier. You can join the $1 tier, which gets you the shout out on the board, and either visually or orally, or both at times. We want to do the oral for the most part for newer people. And then the $5 tier gets you a whole new show. This show is every Monday, as you well know, and it's free on YouTube and the what's nots. And the Patreon show is every Friday at the $5 tier mark. You can, if you want, binge us for $5, and there's like 150 episodes, almost 150 at this point, and you can listen to all that content there. Even the stuff that's been released from the vault, none of that has been the full episode as well. So trying to keep our $5 tier people happy. But yeah, check that out. And then our $10 tier gets you all of the above, plus it gets you a monthly meetup show where you meet up with us monthly, and it's like a Zoom-like call, and we have a topic at hand, or sometimes videos we react to and things like that. And that's at the $10 tier. Every tier that you get, like the $5 tier gets you the $1 tier benefits, and the $10 tier gets you the $5 tier benefits and the $1 tier benefits. So check that out at patreon.com/superherostuffpod. We also got the merch, which is Redbubble, superhousepod.redbubble.com, and on Threadless, superherostuffpod.threadless.com. Get your Bin Man and Indeed Wizard mug, shirt, shower curtains, and all the rest artwork by Stefan Santa Cruz. And please send us some audio at superhousepodcast@gmail.com. A bumper would be great. You too can be part of the show. I'm ThunderWolfDrew on Instagram and Twitter. ThunderWolf Lives is my other YouTube channel, one of my many YouTube channels. And I have also ThunderWolfDrew.com has my whole portfolio in one place. And that's it, Ben.
Follow us on social media, on Twitter at SuperHousePod, Instagram Superhero Stuff Pod, where we have some different supplemental stuff. I've even analyzed the martial arts stance that the Keaton ornament from The Flash is in, so you can check that out on our Instagram, Superhero Stuff Pod, TikTok, Superhero Stuff Pod, Vero, Superhero Stuff Pod. My website is benwanwriter.com, where you can read a whole bunch of spec scripts, including Gotham, Vampire, Elementary, The Death of Sherlock Holmes, and Curb Your Enthusiasm, Disneyland. If you're fans of any of those shows, check them out and let us know what you think. My YouTube channel is in the description below, including Doctor Who, The Ronin of Time, an audio drama I write, edit, and narrate with the 8th Doctor meeting Miyamoto Musashi, My personal Instagram is Ben Juan Ryder. If you like cats, my son, Alfie, my cat, is at Alfie Pennyworth Cat. And if you have an Alfie yourself, then you can get the Whisker Box, the only cat box with a crazy cat lady and gent. And you can even check out another page on that website, superherostuffpod.com/show notes. That includes various show notes for each of our episodes, links to the scripts that we review if they're available online, Amazon links to the stuff we've been talking about, including, Brian Levant's book that he plugged for us, My Life and Toys. So check that out at superherostuffpod.com/show notes.
Lord have mercy, y'all. Do you like hounds? Do you enjoy pooches? Do you find yourself enjoying time spent with that of canines? Talking about dogs, y'all.
As you might have heard, Superhero Stuff You Should Know has now teamed up with BarkBox. For every month, you get a box for your special canine.
Pooches.
Or hounds.
That's right. One free extra month if you go to barkbox.com/superherostuffpod.
Follow the link and you'll get a free extra month valued at $35 and valid for all multi-length plans.
So get the BarkBox for your hound, for your pooch, for your canine.
Your doggo will thank you.
Why do you smell like shit?
We've returned. Now we're going to go over the concept art. Some from Tim, some from others in the on the film, but majority of that is going to be on Doc Ock. Starting with this one that I know you told me, Tim, was like one of the major points, major components for Doc Ock.
Yeah. So this is Paul Catling, and he was working, I believe, from England at the time. When not too many guys were working remotely, and this is, during the transition into Photoshop. But anyway, some of my renderings, Alfred Molina wasn't cast at this point. This was still all during development.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done a rendering like of Gary Oldman as Doc Ock. I don't know if we've got that in here or not, but if we get to it, I can talk about then.
I'd have to take a look and see if there's one. I don't remember that one.
Okay. But when Paul sent this one over, like all of a sudden, this thing got printed out and everybody was like, that's the fucking movie. That's the character.
Right.
That's the movie. That's the feel. That's the mood. That's the palette. His glasses, just all of it. His posture, the fact that he's muscular yet saggy, all of it.
With really ripped arms.
Right? Like all of it. He just fucking nailed it. And then you can see his indication on the tentacles was sort of the beginning stages of, they're not just worms coming out of a guy's back. There's a meaning behind how they're segmented and things like that. And so this piece of art is one of the best, historically, one of the best pieces of concept art that have steered a movie.
Oh, wow.
This piece of art right here.
Wow.
It just had everybody, including me, just completely blown away. And as simple as the rendering is, it has everything to it. And it was like, this is it. This is the movie we're making. And then this was the architecture from that day forward.
Raimi immediately was like, yep, that's it.
Raimi, and I mean, obviously stuff had to get worked out. That's why like all my renderings play in to this, but this was the design of Doc Ock, and this was like we're looking at the movie. As soon as, like I said, as soon as it came in, and we were around the table, it was like we're looking at the movie now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, there are very few times when one piece of concept art does that, like as in totality, and this was one of those times. It's rare. It's like a hole in one.
That's awesome.
Another
guy's talented as fuck. He's just talented. He's just so talented. So lots of variations of the tentacles. He and I did fucking bazillions. Some just completely ridiculous, and some getting us towards it. But we had to do the full spectrum.
Gotcha.
So, yeah. I don't recognize this piece. I know it's Jim Carson. But I think this was done after I had left, because you can see the tongue thing coming out of
The tentacles.
that one tentacle, and that wasn't conceptualized when Paul and I were working on it.
Gotcha. Okay. This looks like this is said to be an earlier one.
I don't recognize this one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I wonder if this was done at one of the effect shops or something. Yeah, and so Carson, I don't know how familiar you guys are with him. The guy's just fucking amazing. He's also, Andrew, he's a guy that can build what he draws.
Okay. Yeah.
Like he's a great sculptor. He's a great mechanical effects guy. Like he's like, oh my God, like when we were working on Wild Wild West, he designed the big. Did you guys see Wild Wild West with Will Smith, the Barry Sonnenfeld film?
In the theater.
Okay.
Not
For better
censored.
or
You know the spider, right?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, John Peters spider.
Yes, the giant spider.
The giant spider. So Jim Carson designed that,
Oh.
and
Okay.
and he built little prototypes of the arms and literally had them mechanically working in the art department. Like it's like he had that whole thing worked out, not just through bullshit sketching. He actually. So anyway, so that's some background on him. The guy's amazing, and
It has some great stuff for all 3 Spider-Man movies that Raimi did.
he's just like. Even today, the stuff he does today. So anyway, so he's a perfect guy to come in and figure out, like, okay, so he's got these tentacles. How do they attach to him? What's the mechanics behind it? What's the concept behind what the whole thing? And so he worked all that out and worked out how they go in and clip into his neural system and all that shit.
Yeah.
I love looking at his work because it's always so well thought out. And then same thing, the whole waist piece, torso piece. I never got to this point while I was on the film. I was still, when I left, we were still highly focused on the articulation and the design of the tentacles themselves.
So we have a ton of these too, by the way.
Yeah.
From Carson, just all these ways that the tentacles would attach to him.
Yeah.
Another one from Catling.
Fuck! Look at that one. So cool.
Yeah,
that's
really
what
cool.
that maquette was kind of based off of. How the tentacles are droopy in the maquette. It was like this, like fully relaxed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So
this
here
was,
we go.
boy, that's a really bad
Scan.
Yeah. That's so that's my rendering, and so that was the final buy off on the tiny fingers. When the clamshell's open, we still hadn't worked out the mechanics behind how the outer shell opens. But this was the final. I have another rendering that is closer to the final. But anyway,
we got a bunch of these. This is the one with the closed shell.
Yeah, and that was another idea for the heads of the tentacles. We just did a million of them.
Yeah.
This is way early on when Sam was like, yeah, they should each have their own personality, and maybe one is blah blah blah. And so these were sketches.
Yeah, the faces are different.
That. Yeah.
Was there any talk about like them being snake-like or like the snake in the Garden of Eden kind of vibe? Because that's what I got. That's the vibe I got when I watched it the first time in the theater. It's because it's like this snake-like thing influencing him to do evil kind of thing.
Yeah, because the idea is that even though he had control over them, they had control over him.
Yeah.
Right, and that's where the personality would come through. And each one of them was, that was something important to Sam, that like spoke a different language to his neural system than another one would. Whether it might be, hey, this is the one that's got the sense of humor, and this is the one that's a little dark, and this is
right.
Oh, this was some of my 3D. So both Paul and I were doing 3D stuff as well as 2D shit, and this was early on about like just, this is the blue sky phase of, just throwing ideas out for Tentacles.
Gotcha.
None of the shit landed, obviously.
This is what I thought was interesting because it's almost like has a sort of computer readout of something going on the surface.
Right. Yeah. So the idea behind this one was that because these were intelligent creatures, this was like what you would think of as like, AI back in those days. And the idea is that there were just layers of transparency that showed, different levels of action to the head of the tentacle and the tentacle itself. And it was immediately shot down just because Sam's concept of these things were just like these brute force, appendages that could rip a truck in half or punch through, a building, but yet, like I said, do the delicate work. So that's why, and then we landed on what we landed. He wanted a tough exterior that like this just didn't hit his notes as far as like.
Gotcha.
It's too delicate, too elegant.
This is very delicate.
Yeah.
Gotcha. More from Carson.
This is Carson again. Yeah. Fucking Carson, man. He's just so good. I love seeing his stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So.
And the funny thing is he's like the humblest guy you'd ever meet, and he's fucking funnier than shit.
That's good.
That's awesome.
All the movies we had done together, it was just a laugh. Nobody laughs doing movies anymore. They all just sit in a fucking dark room and draw on their computer. Like we were having wrestling matches in the middle of the art department, fucking going out and getting drunk at lunch. Not Jim, he never drank, but the rest of us were. And I mean, like those days are gone. Like whatever happened.
Right.
So, man. All right, more and more Carson, the Vitruvian Man type of thing here.
Just a bazillion. Yeah, exactly.
Just all these
Look
things.
Look at all their ideas. Yeah, and this is where they started closing in on it.
Yeah, I noticed once we got to this slide in that episode, we're like, this is getting a little like close to what we remember from the movie.
Yeah.
More from that device, sort of like an exercise device thing. This is a great image, even though it's not in the movie.
I haven't seen that. That's cool.
Let's see. From Carson on the accident, post-accident. This is apparently to show the dexterity of it for the audience who is wondering what's going on here.
Yeah, and I haven't seen this before either.
I love that it's pouring, some condiments on that hot dog.
Yes, having a hot dog. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
That is, that is not the feel that Paul Catling had in his rendering of Doc Ock.
It's a lot more. It's a lot darker.
I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember these as well, and this just got into. Once we started honing in on it, then it got into, all right, well, how do we, we're not always going to be able to get the silhouette of these things. When it's dark, what do we do? And so the idea was like, well, they have lighting features within them.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Will Reese.
Oh, Will Reese. Fucking hell, Will Reese.
It's got great stuff with these, with the Raimi Spider-Man.
Totally.
So we have this fight. Here's yours. So,
that's Gary Oldman.
I see the Gary Oldman in this. Mm-hmm. Now that I look at the face.
So this was done around the same time. Me and Paul, kind of tag teaming. So you see how just sort of kind of working off of each other's concepts in regards to the, just the architecture of the tentacles. Mm-hmm. And you can see on my waist belt how it's just not thought through because all the focus was on the tentacles at this point. Mm-hmm. And it's not that, Carson took that to a deeper level, but so we were like, at this point we were halfway there to having a solid concept of what the Tentacles were going to be.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
But he wasn't cast yet. That's why I just threw Gary Oldman in there, because I thought, well, the guy's a great actor. He'd make a great Doc
Looks
Ock.
cool.
Yeah, but like after I don't know if I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know this for a fact. I wouldn't be surprised if Paul Catling's rendering was the catalyst to casting Alfred Molina. I don't know that. I don't know that. They may have already had him in mind at that time. I can't remember. But
That'd be
I
cool,
don't think so, because otherwise I wouldn't have put someone else in as Doc Ock.
It's true. This is another one from you, and we were talking off the air about sort of the coat in this.
Yeah. So again, this was two things. I think this was one of my first sketches for it before any real direction. And except for that, the Tentacles had personalities, different personalities, that they were going to be metallic. So I ended up going with like this reflective surface, and that they may have appendages, and that Doc Ock was, going to be wearing some sort of trench coat that would like the silhouette of a trench coat, and maybe, it could double as like, a cape looking type thing when he's flying through the air. So that looks really cool. That was all I had. It was just sort of started. This is this beginning process of blue sky thinking.
Gotcha. Then there's this image that did make it into the Caught in the Web, Dreaming Up the World of Spider-Man 2 by Mark Otavas, to your chagrin. I know, but
yeah, I'm not proud. I'm not proud of this one.
It does show what Doc Ock can do with the car, though, which I guess
exactly.
the point.
It looks like a 90s industrial album cover. Industrial band.
Octavius.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, man. Like how there'll be things that you're rushed on, on a movie or something, and you're just and nowadays it's like, for a fact that when you submit something that you hate, that's the one that's going to make it in the making. It's Murphy's Law. It's going to happen every time.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'm skipping ahead to some of this other art that we have here from a Patreon episode. Let's see what we got here. Because I know we got some more stuff related to Doc Ock. So here we go. More stuff from Catling.
Oh yeah, I remember these sketches. Yep.
More Tentacles.
Yeah, so he was doing. This is during the time when both of us were doing 3D. So the whole digital age, right, was doing this transition. Like first Photoshop, and then 3D was getting in there too, close after Photoshop. So both of us were. You saw some of my 3D stuff that I was doing, and I think I was using Strata at the time. Which is like a program that doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know what he was using, but his 3D chops were at that time, just well beyond mine. He was doing some cool shit.
Gotcha.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. That's excellent.
Yeah, it looks real.
Powerful. Yeah, it's powerful. How it's dug in. That's really cool.
Yeah, that is very cool.
Yeah, I remember these. Yeah, so same thing, just like looking at articulation, how it bends, and then also he was playing around with, you see how fine the tips are. So I mean, there was no stone unturned in our exploration here.
Yeah,
so much artwork.
You can see that. Just all the more from Catling here.
Yeah.
Man, this looks like a Battlestar Galactica kind of ship or something, the way it's
It does. That would
lit.
make a great spaceship.
Yeah, right?
Or a good Reavers ship,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
This is a freaky one when you look at his smile.
It's really freaky. I love the glasses on the guy and shit.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah.
You can see a bit of a, or it feels at least to me like a Matrix influence when it comes to like the Tentacles. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the Sentinels.
The Sentinels
in the Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah, these were these were super powerful images too, just in his 3D. I mean, look at the detail
Mm-hmm.
in that stuff, especially like the one on the right that Carson did here.
Mm-hmm.
What was so powerful about that is, seeing how when the tentacle twists on itself, in its axis,
Yeah.
then the mechanical feels even more organic, and that's something we were doing in the shops.
Wow.
Even before all this. So yeah, good stuff.
Fusion reactor stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, all the thought that put into the lab and the experiment stuff, like it's stuff that when you're watching as an audience member, you don't think about how much thought had to be put into just every aspect, especially with the science element of all this.
Yeah, because when we're working on this stuff, like when you see all that work from Carson, there's a lot of research that's going on behind what fusion is and the process for it, and then how to maybe translate that to tell the story and what it looks like on film. Mm-hmm. And the only way you can communicate that is through artwork. And so it's just it takes a ton of drawings and a lot of detail to the drawings, a lot of back and forth. No, I think maybe it's this, or no, but it should be inside an industrial building. It wouldn't be in a lab. He makes a lab out of it, and it just all the back and forth, and it just turns into stacks and stacks and stacks of artwork and a ton of our time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even this hospital sequence.
And that's full on the mood of Jamie nailed the mood of this scene, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Then the aftermath.
Jamie Rama, it's good stuff. Yeah.
Man.
That was total Raimi cam. It was finally we got the Raimi cam back.
Yes.
In that scene, it was oh God, I've been waiting years for it since Evil Dead. It's get it in there, and he finally did it in Spider-Man. It was I was
thanks to the tentacles.
Out. Yeah, thanks to the tentacles.
More from Catling.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, there's the burning building sequence from Will Reese. And then the lair, another aspect to it that had to be designed.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how you see concept art this is one of the last movies where you'll see concept art that's you see marker drawings on one page, pencil drawings on one page, and the next page you'd see 3D stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's just all 3D and Photoshop, and that's what's cool about this. Carson was doing 3D on this, but he was also doing just pencil drawings.
That fusion has been valuable. It varies what we end up seeing.
That's killer.
Yeah. So much of the
look at that. Go back to that one. So one more.
This one?
Yeah. So that's Carson again. I mean, that's how the guy thinks. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a full-on elevation that a set designer would do. He's just thinking through all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Blueprint.
It's almost like a working drawing.
Mm-hmm.
So cool.
Yeah. And then more of your tentacles. So this is
so that was the final image that led us to the final fingers.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
This was based off of the sculpture that we saw on that first slide, that clay sculpture that I did.
Yeah,
and so I photographed it from a couple of different angles, and then I just painted over the top of it and got these images from that.
Gotcha.
And this actually led these two images led this is what led us to prototyping the sections and the tentacles between mine and Paul's stuff. To a good feel to just the body of the tentacle itself, and the linkage underneath it, and shit like that.
There's the clay again.
That's it. Yeah.
Nice.
Constantine.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta tell him. That's funny. I hadn't seen these before. He was probably in Steve's shop doing all this shit.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because he wasn't working in the art department at this time. During these days, he was always in the effect shops.
Gotcha. Let's see. More Doc Ock experiment. More of the
Yeah.
strap. Again, there's so many of these. There's so much more put into this. This contraption that's not even in the movie, but like it's really cool to like look at the different versions of it to think,
Yeah.
what if?
Yeah.
Dr. Octopus with 2 S's. Arm concept.
I noticed that.
That's funny.
Someone had their
Next time
priorities.
I talk to Carson, I'm gonna hammer him about that.
So yeah, but
That's a great rendering.
yeah, it's amazing to see a lot of these. Yeah, and I think
So
this is the
much
final
work.
design for the lab.
That's it.
What an awesome-
And that is like that image. That's total Neil Spizak, where you mix in the brick with the concrete,
Mhm.
and then put tech in there with it. That's
Yeah.
like kind of a classic Neil Spizak kind of taste.
It's a great aesthetic fusion.
It
gives
is.
the style
It's
to it.
awesome.
Because
Yep.
we saw an earlier concept from Carson where it just looked like it was a regular lab, and you could tell like it just. I feel like they looked at it and they're like, yeah, we can do something a lot more interesting than this,
Yeah.
and this is what we got.
Yeah, because Neil, I mean, it adds so much texture to the set. I mean, look at how rich the set turned out to be on film because of that.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
So the hospital,
Yeah.
fusion device, then some storyboards that we have here,
Oh wow.
and
That's
then
cool.
this is the last one that we
right,
have.
yeah.
The big image.
God, Alex Tavaleris. No shit.
Yeah,
There's a legend.
it's a hell
I
of a
didn't
rendering.
know. I didn't know they had him do this.
Yeah, I mean it's one that we can thank our research assistant Dan for finding this one for us.
So Alex was Dean Tavaleris's younger brother, and Dean Tavaleris is famous production designer for Coppola, Godfather movies,
Okay.
all that stuff, and just like Hollywood royalty. So both those guys could draw like the wind. That's back in the day when production designers actually could draw.
Awesome.
And they're back now. I mean, more and more production designers today are actually like come from concept designers or whatever, and they draw just as good as concept designers do.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how everything's changed when we look back
Yeah.
at all this.
Yeah, you look at Darren Guilford or Oliver Scholl, Francois Dewey. All these guys are concept designers, and they're all like the biggest production designers now. James Klein's got a movie coming out on the 29th, and it's his first production design film. It's like one of the most visually stunning trailers I've ever seen.
What is it?
It's the guy that directed Rogue One.
Oh, the creator.
Oh, the creator.
Oh, the creator. That's it.
That
I'm
movie,
sorry.
that aesthetic looks so fucking sweet.
That's James Klein to the T. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just
Wow.
what he does. And so he was, kind of a lead art director up at ILM for
Okay.
the last 10, 15 years or whatever. And you met this director on Rogue One. And he's the one that was responsible for a lot of the Star Wars stuff, right?
Okay.
The later Star Wars stuff. But anyway, so he left ILM a couple years ago, and this is his production design. And this is his first film, and like I'm not going to jinx it, but like I have the feeling visually this is going to be the most visually rich movie out this year. I mean,
that trailer is incredible. It really is.
right?
Yeah.
That
It's
looks really
like,
good.
man, it gives me like seeing that trailer gives me the feeling that I used to have. That made me fall in love with sci-fi as a kid. Like
Right,
seeing that
right.
trailer gave me the same feeling that Blade Runner gave me when I saw Blade
wow.
Runner.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
I got to see that. That comes out soon, doesn't it?
It does.
The 29th.
Okay.
And I'm dying because I know they're halted on, but I'm dying for Dune 2 as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they delayed that to the next year.
That's killing me. I'm anxiously awaiting.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, this has been great, Tim. Again, as usual, a ton of stories we had no idea about, a lot of behind-the-scenes drama that I think will be very interesting for everybody to be listening to. Just the amount of work that's put into, elements of stuff we've seen on screen that we just kind of like take for granted. It's like, oh yeah, of course Doc Ock has tentacles. That's how they work. Because that's, we've seen this movie for so much for the past few years. It's been such a big part of Spider-Man movies, but to see the development of how that came about and to know the amount of work and back and forth that put into it is, another insight entirely.
I'm always, I hope I don't talk too much, but it is. It's like there's, and the other thing is, it seems like every time we get together, I have some fucking drama story.
That's why we keep bringing you back, really.
You talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger getting a live cast in the middle of a fucking tennis court is
racquetball court.
Racquetball court. That's what sticks in my mind. Sorry about all the other stuff, but that sticks in my mind the most. Like, the biggest star in the fucking world is getting goop put on him in maybe it was nighttime, you said, but it was outside. Like, what? It's just like a wild story.
Yeah, we're in a racquetball court because of it. Oh, you know the story, but anyway.
Amazing.
Almost right there.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Tim, for bringing on, as usual, more stories and stuff. And I guess, do you have anything to promote or where people can find more of your stuff? I know that some of the stuff we pulled from your website.
Yeah. No, thanks for having me again, you guys. It's always fun and reliving some of these stories. No, I've got to update my website. I think the latest thing I've got on there is Black Panther 2. So, keep visiting. I'm going to update soon, and nothing to promote from my end. I was doing Thunderbolts, but obviously the writers and the actors strike has killed everything, so it's in turnaround. So we'll see when that picks back up.
Gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
Well, with that,
thank you.
That is superhero stuff you should know. All right, big thanks to Dan for gathering the visuals for the YouTube experience and helping us out. Over to the comments, all on Spider-Man, of course. So, Rowdy Rodimus commented, not sure if you've ever covered it, but when it comes to the Raimi suit in the novelization, I assume for the first movie, Pete had been wearing his wrestling outfit when, after saving a tailor or costume maker, the guy made the suit for him as a way of thanking him based off the drawing Peter had made in the movie, if you count novelizations as canon to the movie. No, I didn't know this. I have not read the novelization. It is from Peter David, who wrote the novelizations for all three of the Raimi Spider-Man movies, but that feels like something Peter David would do, where he'd be like, well, there's not much of an explanation on this, so let me just add a scene here to sort of make that make sense. So, but thank you, Rowdy. And maybe at some point we'll cover that.
Yes, thank you.
Cybersonic2638. This was a cool comment because Cybersonic said, loving this. Thanks for showcasing the Spider-Man 4 animatic from my YouTube. So Cybersonic is the one who actually uploaded the animatic that we used for the Spider-Man 4 episode where
That's awesome.
Spider-Man was fighting Vulture. So thank you. And then this was interesting. So Pyramid Head, one of our Patreon supporters, says, the take on Vulture sounds pretty interesting. I feel like Raimi did the sympathetic victim thing a few too many times by Spider-Man 3, so it would have been a nice change of pace. Among the rumors I read about Spider-Man 4 years ago included Toomes buying out the Daily Bugle, which seems fake based on the legit info, and Peter abandoning a pregnant Mary Jane at the end. And Allosaur House has dropped a few rumors as well, saying a few other additional rumors were also that MJ was Toomes' real, I think he means daughter, Toomes' real daughter. MJ can't catch a break with bad fathers. Peter cheating on MJ for Felicia, and the weirdest one of the bunch, Adrian Toomes was to be revealed as Peter's biological father.
The fuck is this, man?
Someone really just wanted Toomes to be related to everyone, it seems. So, this is, he could have been the father to Black Cat, MJ, and Peter at the same time, everybody involved in this love triangle. So, if this crazy idea was somehow true, Toomes would have been a composite character of obviously himself, Walter Hardy, and Richard Parker.
Okay.
Ridiculous. I've never heard of any of this before, but thank you, Allosaur House, for the entertainment.
Yes, thank you.
That's insane. All right, and over to the shoutouts.
Okay, everybody. So we want to thank. We'll start off with. Let's go backwards a little bit. Amazing Spider-Man, Robert H, Jose D, Carlos R, Devin S, JPF. I'll stop it there. Actually,
I want to mention your favorites.
Too many. I don't want to show too much favoritism. So we've told you, and thanks to other supporters as well. Thank everybody up here on the board as usual, as always. And we've told you about our friends and how we'd like you to do us a favor.
We want you to tell all your friends about us.